Oh, wow. That's my recent reaction. And the reason why is because World Liberty recently made a post about Zebec. And no, I'm not joking, even though nothing I say is financial advice. World Liberty literally made a post not too long ago saying how 2 months ago, USD1 supply on Solana sat at 160 million. However, they say ever since then, it's grown 5 times to 855 million, and it was running around 200 to 300 million in daily volume. Now, they do say thank you to Zebec, amongst others, but here's the thing. The way you take a look at it is, of course, we already know what Zebec did historically when it comes to World Liberty, but actually, there's going to be maybe more. At least this is according to Zebec themselves. Let me explain why. Because Zebec, they say that they loved working with World Liberty and being a part of basically USD1's growth on Solana. And USD1, by the way, is World Liberty's stablecoin, right? But besides that point, Zebec does say more USD1 support across Zebec's ecosystem and additional World Liberty integrations ahead. This is pretty interesting because, again, they say additional World Liberty integrations ahead. So there's going to be more, apparently. When they make a post like that, I'm assuming they're not joking. First of all, why don't I think they're joking? Because if they were joking about something like that, it would be a bad look, right? It wouldn't be good in terms of the optics if they did something like that as a joke. So, of course, I think they're probably being serious. Not to mention, Zebec does not have a history of kind of, having these jokes and stuff like that. They don't really have a history of something like, again, doing that. So this is why when they make a post like that, I treat it pretty seriously, in my opinion. Now, of course, this has nothing to do with the price charts when it comes to ZBCN because it's clearly still not doing the best. But even though I'll talk about that soon, I do want to talk about how this could maybe impact, I think, the future when it comes to Zebec, because having something to do with World Liberty in terms of a partnership, that right there, I think, gives Zebec more credibility, which is why I think maybe Zebec had an easier time doing what they did when it comes to Stellar. Having that partnership, right? Maybe this could have had an effect when it comes to that. Who knows? Not to mention, let's keep in mind, Zebec has had historical partnerships when it comes to Algorand, right? And all of this right here, I think, just showcases the fundamentals when it comes to Zebec in a sense where I don't think the project is a joke. I don't think it's just, doing things for the sake of it. I think it's actually being treated seriously. Now, keep in mind, a very big holder when it comes to ZBCN is none other than Circle, at least one of the big holders, right? Circle is the creator of USDC. So, of course, this just kind of makes a little bit of sense, in my opinion, as to why maybe Circle still believes in Zebec, because Zebec, even though it hasn't performed the best, the market cap is still well below 300 million. Even still, despite all that, it is still continuing to deliver on partnerships and, fundamental improvements, in my opinion. Like, for instance, we saw Zebec not too long ago achieve ISO 20022 compliance. So, again, it's at least doing things. Not to mention, Zebec is literally backed by Solana Ventures. Solana Ventures is one of the backers when it comes to Zebec. So let's just imagine that right there. Solana Ventures is very massive. I highly doubt that they need something like Zebec in an actual sense. But when they back something like Zebec, I think it showcases the belief that they have when it comes to Zebec and also what they see in it fundamentally, right? Because I highly doubt that something that massive would want to believe in something like Zebec, which by all means is not even a big project at all, right? In the grand scheme of things. Like, it's decently sized, but it's not so big. And especially back then, it wasn't like as big as it was right now, I think, in terms of popularity. So when I take a look at that right there, Solana Ventures, Circle, I think they kind of took a chance when it comes to Zebec. So far, has it been well for them? I guess to a certain extent, maybe, because ZBCN did become very popular last year, even though there's been a big pullback. But if ZBCN just started becoming popular basically in a mainstream type of way last year, even despite the pullback, I feel like, again, maybe the journey has just kind of begun in that sense, right? It's just kind of getting started because I think Zebec gained a lot of its popularity last year. So just after 2025, we're still in kind of the beginning of 2026. It's kind of like, isn't the movie just hypothetically somewhat beginning? That's the way to take a look at it. And again, if they're planning things moving forward alongside World Liberty, I don't see why that's a bad thing. I think if anything, it's going to be a pretty good thing when it comes to Zebec, because the more partnerships they have, the more integrations they do, the more things that they kind of announced. I think it's only just a net positive for Zebec at the end of the day. So yes, ZBCN is below 300 million in terms of market cap. It's clearly not doing the best, but at the same time, this is the altcoin space. A bunch of projects are not doing the best. XDC is not doing the best. XLM is not doing the best either. Neither is Onyx, which is Zebec's closest competitor. But actually, the bizarre thing is that Onyx literally just launched the mainnet of their layer 1 blockchain, like just recently. And that was a kind of like what I thought to be the biggest thing that they've ever done so far in history. And yet, that's also not doing the best. So when people like to say, but Zebec sucks and all this. Well, okay, compared to its actual closest competitors, it's actually having a pullback much like them. So if Zebec sucks, does it mean that its competitors are also not good in that sense? I don't necessarily agree with that in every single case, because I don't think that like XDC, Stellar, or Onyx, or Zebec, I don't think there's anything like bad when it comes to it fundamentally. It's just the charts are not doing the best. Like, I don't feel like it's fundamentally broken, right? Some other projects out there, I feel like the fundamentals are a little bit broken, like in a sense where I don't really know what they're doing, and it feels like the team just kind of gave up. But what I like about Zebec is that the team actually treats it seriously. They don't treat it like a part-time thing, in my opinion. It just kind of gives me off that vibe. Now, I'm not a part of their team, so I wouldn't know 100% for sure, but at least that's the vibe that it gives off to me. Now, if I take a look at it, it just would only make sense, right, that they do care about this, because people like to say, oh, but it's just your feeling though. Well, again, let's just assume this. It's only logical, right? If Zebec continues to have more partnerships, like what we did see in the case of World Liberty, and also recently when it comes to Stellar, that requires a lot of attention, in my opinion, a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of energy. So when people like to say, oh, but it's only your feeling. Well, again, it's a logical assumption from what I can see. It's like, for instance, if I see a car that's neon green and I say, oh, that car looks very bright, that's a logical description of what I'm seeing, right? So how is it any different here? If I see a car that's neon green, I'm going to say it's neon green. If I see Zebec and it having more partnerships, and I say that, oh, it looks like the team cares, it's only logical for me to think that way, right? So of course, it is my feeling at the end of the day. It's just my perspective. It's just my opinion. But I think it's only logical for me to extrapolate that from what I can see, right? As in my observation. So when I take a look at this right here, I just think that it makes sense to me. It's like, for instance, when I went to Arizona, my reaction was, wow, I think it looks really cool. But that's an observation, right? So again, if I think Arizona is awesome and I take a look at Zebec's effort, the team and energy that they're putting in, and I think that they're actually putting effort, that's also an observation. And again, I don't know why it's a wrong observation though, because it would only be fair, I think, for me to logically assume that they do care about this project if the team is putting this much effort. But besides that point though, I'm still holding and I'm still waiting, because actually ZBCN, the amount of holders, it's still staying somewhat consistent at around 96,000. So it's not like we've seen such a drastic increase or anything like that as of late, which makes sense. I mean, ZBCN's not doing the best, but again, that's still quite a good amount of holders. So when people like to say that Zebec is cooked and no one really cares about it, well, I'm assuming at least almost 100,000 people out there do care, right? Or not, why would there be around 96,000 holders? But yeah, besides that point though, I'll be sure to make more updates when it comes to Zebec moving forward. So hopefully you all stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. It's Lee the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.